Hi, I'm Karl Taylor.
I'm Ashley.
And welcome to Karl Taylor Photography live on social media, whichever platform you're watching on. Now, as usual, we're going to do Q&A, are we?
We are, definitely. I'll be giving you the questions.
You'll be fielding the questions, vetting them, checking them for their authenticity or their credibility.
Yep.
So if you've got any photography related questions, fire those into Ash. She has actually got, I don't think you can quite see it there. Look, there it is. She's got an iPad where she gets the questions on there, because we've got questions coming in from multiple social media channels that get put in there. She relays your questions. Sometimes you have to answer them because they're just out of my realm. Out of my realm.
Very rarely.
Anyway, yeah, we're here, live Q&A session. If you've got any photography related questions, fire them through. Before we kick off with any photography related questions, let's talk about a couple of topics. What's new? I'll tell you what's new, and it's kind of relevant to photographers, is this new iPhone, isn't it?
It is, yes.
It's
a lot of talk about that.
The iPhone 11, I believe, and Ben, as always, because Ben here is a big Apple freak fan, isn't he? I mean, they could wrap up anything and call it an i something and he'd buy it.
I don't know. He just literally said to me that he's not 100% convinced about this one. He might give it a skip.
And do you think he's not convinced about it because he doesn't like this triple lens camera?
I don't know. I suppose it depends what Ben's purposes or reasons for having the camera are. But,
well, I mean,
it doesn't quite sell it to
everybody. He doesn't strike me as a massive photography fan on his phone. Maybe video, more video. But interestingly, this new iPhone 11 is kicking up a bit of a storm. I think it looks quite cool. These three lenses don't bother me at all. But a lot of people are saying, you know, there's a lot of memes going on here about these three lenses and people making fun of it, and this is on a website called High Snobiety, and they've got this whole page here dedicated to Apple iPhone shots with like multiple lenses all over it. I think this one here with the shaver, that was brilliant. That one, I love that one.
I think the fidget spinner is my favorite.
Fidget spinner's good as well. I mean, there's just tons of them, and they're quite funny to look at. So obviously that's causing a bit of a storm, this whole thing with the multiple lenses. But I don't really know why Ben is still on that screen. There we are. He's back on us now.
He's thinking about that camera.
He's obsessed, you see, with that. He's thinking, look at that. I want that. I want it.
Do I not?
So yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, what do you think of those three lenses?
Oh, I suppose I haven't really looked into it too much. Depends on what they're for. Are they a bit...
Well, no, one of them's super wide angle, one's normal, and one's telephoto.
Well, then I suppose
they've got a purpose.
The purpose is there.
They just brought out a new advert with this dog with long hair being photographed like a superstar in a wind tunnel or something, and they show how the three lenses work. And you know, if it does the job, then yes, then great. You know,
I suppose it makes it easier, and convenience is what we're all about nowadays. So.
Exactly. It's just when it's tech for the sake of tech.
Yes.
That's the problem. When it's just a waste of time and just a gimmick, but it seems to work. So there we go. That's new for
5, 6, 7, 8.
I was going to say that's new for photographers, but the for and photographers got stuck
tongue
there.
Twister to start the show with.
It got stuck there. Now, what else? What other news did I hear? Now, this was a funny one. Talking about technology. You know President Donald Trump in America? Yes?
Luckily not personally.
Well, luckily he's not our president. No. We have a prime minister here in the UK. But he was complaining, and I don't know if this is legit, but if it is, it's bizarre. He was complaining the other day about energy-saving light bulbs, right? He said that he looks orange because of energy-saving light bulbs, and he's against them for that reason. I mean, he seems against anything to do with saving energy or saving the climate. I think he's probably locked in with all these oil companies and wants to keep them happy. Who knows? It's not our problem. That's unfortunately your problem over there in America. That's your thing. But one thing I can tell you, or I could tell Mr. Trump, is that he's not looking orange from energy-saving light bulbs, because energy-saving light bulbs are now all LED, okay? And the LED spectrum is far cooler than the halogen tungsten spectrum that are not energy saving light bulbs. They're much warmer. They're very much warmer in the 3200 Kelvin color temperature, 3600, that range. The energy saving light bulbs were always traditionally bluer with a little bit of the spectrum missing, actually missing quite a lot in the red. So they made people look a bit blue. They've now added the newer LEDs, they've warmed them up a little bit, but they're still not as warm. So he's actually got that in reverse. If we did a color checker test card on energy saving light bulbs color balance, if they've got a high CRI, which most of them have now, that's the high color index, and we compared it to the old halogen tungsten normal bulbs, you'd see that actually the old ones are warmer. So technically he should look more orange on the old ones. Now, if he finds that out, maybe he'll be for energy saving light bulbs. So there you go, there's a tip. Someone let him know that energy saving light bulbs are a good thing. Not only for the energy, but also for making him look less orange.
And maybe he needs to look at his fake tan rather than the lighting.
Right, let's get off the old political. We got enough politic problems of our own here in the UK with the Brexit and Boris Johnson and goodness knows what else.
Well,
so let's skip past all that politics nonsense.
Go to the question.
Should we take a question, Ash? Let's take a question.
Okay, we have one from Ethan Davis, who's putting a general one out there saying, is anyone from your team wanting to become a professional photographer? So I suppose you can maybe answer that.
I hope not. I hope not, otherwise they wouldn't be part of the team, would they? I mean, we do have some photographers here. I mean, Ashley, you've worked as a photographer. Georgie has not worked as a photographer, but studied photography. Ben's studied media, graphics. So they're all, you know, in that world. Maybe one day they will fly the nest. Away they go, off to a land of adventure and do their own thing. Of course they will at some point. These are just all young people, you know, they're going to do their own thing at some point. They're not going to tell me though, right now, not if they want to get their bonus at
Not
Christmas.
if we don't want to burn that bridge.
Exactly. So I'm afraid, Ethan, I don't think anyone's going to be able to answer that question honestly.
Yeah. Next one then is from Kartikeyan M. Hi Karl, how would they go about starting as a fashion photographer?
Now, this is a good question, isn't it? But I think you have you written a blog about this?
I have written a blog on fashion photography and getting started, offering you some tips, things you should know.
That's a
giving
good
you some
one. I'm going to find that blog post. Tell us a little bit more about what you put in that blog post while I go and find it.
Yeah, it deals with everything you need to know. So fashion photography isn't, it's not something like portraiture that you can just practice at home. It does require a little bit more work, a little bit more investment, planning.
And collaboration. Yeah, teamwork is a big thing, and that's one of the things I touch on in the blog. So I talk about finding the right team, so working with stylists, models. There you go. Here it is. So you scroll down, right down on our blog, go to our blog there on our homepage, scroll right down, sorry to interrupt you, and then you click on this, and Ashley's put together, look at this,
it's all there.
What was his name? It was a difficult name.
Oh, you're going to get me to say it again.
So look at this, Kartikeyan. There you have, become a fashion photographer, Ashley's top tips and creative ideas. And obviously I've got some input on these as well, because I check over these blog posts and throw my tuppence
Make sure
worth
they're all accurate.
So we're not going to answer your question. You can head over to the blog and read it all on the blog. So anyone who's interested in fashion photography, you can do that. We're going to be filming some new fashion courses soon.
Yes.
I'm off to China this weekend with Tim Flack, hopefully doing a workshop out there on photography. And when we get back, or when I get back in October, we've got some new fashion shoots planned with the lovely Karis model that we've worked with in the past. And these are going to be location fashion shoots. We're actually going to put her in the ocean and have her lying in the cold sea and stuff. So I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've done
some fashion.
Yeah. Let's go again.
Okay, so from Benzik Multimedia, hi Karl, I am a beauty, portrait and wedding photographer, and I got the 70-200 non-image stabilized lens. Do you think it will serve me well, much like the one with image stabilization, or do I need to get rid of it and get the one with image stabilization?
I thought we had this question last week.
We probably had a similar one. I suppose maybe they weren't there for it.
Well, the answer is no, you don't need to get rid of it, because actually the 70-200 non-image stabilized version is sharper than the image stabilized version, or it certainly used to be. The model that I've got, which is a non-image stabilized version, is probably one of the sharpest lenses in Canon's arsenal. And the image stabilizing version, I've seen the tests, the MTF curve graphs, and it's not quite as sharp. So I'd say if you're okay with not worrying about, having to stabilize your image, if you're good with your camera, stick with that one.
I suppose we're assuming there that it is a Canon.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They don't
It might be a
actually
Nikon.
specify, could be Nikon, Sigma,
right, you're
Tamron,
right, good
anything.
point.
So would it
So-
still apply?
No, it wouldn't, because every manufacturer is different. I mean, Nikon make great lenses, Olympus, Pentax, they all make good lenses, but the specs I was talking about were specifically to a Canon. I suppose if we look at the chances of it being a Canon have got about 65% of the market, I believe.
And it's a very strong lens of Canon's.
Yeah, Nikon's got a 25% share of the market. I think the rest is split up. Actually, no, Sony have now taken a fair, or it could be a Sony. Because we've got the 70 to 200 Sony that we use
Yeah, we do,
on the
for filming.
video as well. So anyway, apologies for making the assumption that it was a Canon. But if it is a Canon, the 70-200 non-image stabilization is sharper.
Okay, next one is from Nick Barella. At what point did your photography start to take off? Was there a particular moment?
Oh, my goodness me. Well, I started photography, I first picked up a camera when I was 17. I started working in photography round about 22 years old, assisting, working in professional dark rooms, learning the craft. And then I started working for myself probably about 24 as a photojournalist in photojournalism. That was back in 1994, a long time ago. Did that for a few years, and I suppose that's when it started taking off, because that's when I started getting my work published. Took a bit of time, and then I switched from photojournalism into advertising photography, but I did a bit of a stint back in assisting again in between and learning some new skills. So it's been a gradual process. It's not been a one thing.
Not overnight.
Not overnight, definitely not. I haven't gone from then to now overnight. Very rarely do photographers do that. I mean, you get a few superstars that, make it very quickly, but not often.
Next question. Unfortunately, I can't read Chinese or Japanese, so I'm not sure how to pronounce your name.
Yes, that's those symbols things.
They would like to know how to create a 360-degree rim light for car photography.
Okay, car photography is a tricky one.
Yeah.
We're actually going to be doing some car photography in the new year. Got a project. We're doing a motorbike shoot as well, aren't we?
We are at the end of the year, December,
at the end of the year.
I think. Yeah.
But the principles are fairly similar. With car photography, you're kind of treating it like a product, but on a much larger scale. So if you want to rim light it, you wouldn't really rim light it. What you need to do is you put a sort of graduated glow of light over the gloss paintwork, over the roof, over the glass, over the bonnet, over the boot, etc. There's not really much sides to a car. You've got the end and the front. Most of it is top. It's a long, slender thing. So what you're talking about is getting light into that top surface and having that light peter away. Now, when they do that on location, you'll often see they shoot cars at sort of dusk, twilight, after the sun has set, because the sky acts as a beautiful natural gradient, because you've got that lovely light going from brighter, and then getting darker. And that reflects in the bodywork of the car, looks really cool. Now you can do the same in the studio by putting a huge overhead floating panel, like a giant white panel. Has to be much longer than the car, has to be deeper than the car, floats above the car, and you angle it slightly to the car, and then you shine your lights from behind the car into that panel, and you get the same effect of that graduating light falling away that wraps over the bodywork of the car. That's basically, in essence, how it's done. It's a little bit more complicated that when you start having to light the panels, the wings, the wheels, and all the rest of it. But actually, it's a very methodical process. I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to doing some more of that at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be quite a big one for us to do.
Yeah.
Okay, next one is from James saying, "Hello, Karl. What do you think about Kat Erlen?"
What about hello, Ashley?
This one's for you. What do you think about Kat Erlen, a photographer based in New York City? Would it be possible to see her as a guest on KTE?
Never heard of her.
Oh.
Never heard of her.
We'll maybe go look her
Let's
up and
write her
have a
down.
look
I'm
at
not going to
that.
bring her website up now in case this is just
Cat with a K.
in case this is just someone trying to advertise themselves. But I'll write that down, and then I've got it. We got it. So we'll check her out and see.
Okay. Philip Mason is asking, being a photography student, I was wondering what you think is the best DSLR for studio work.
Okay. I'm going to come back to that because just while we're on that last subject of guests, right? That person was asking about guests. I will tell you who we have got coming up as guests very soon. We got some big names in photography, some of the biggest names in photography as guests very, very soon. If we take a look here, on the 29th of October, we've got world famous product photographer Jonathan Knowles coming on the show live to talk to us. I'm going to interview him about his long career, how he does these amazing shots, how he works with these big brand names. So he's a top product and advertising photographer coming on the show. Then later on in the year, we've got Eric Johansson. He's really famous, this guy, for his composite fantasy scenes. They're absolutely incredible. I'm not a huge fan of composite work, but I like his stuff because it looks so real.
There's a difference between compositing again for the sake of it, when you could do it in camera, and what he does. His is very surreal fantasy.
Exactly, like
dreamscape. You couldn't do that in camera.
You couldn't, because it's like these dreamscapes.
They're beautiful,
but they're beautiful and they look amazing. He's huge, this guy. So Eric Johansson is coming on the show in December. And we've also got Kamila Hanapova, who's a wonderful fashion and bizarrely architectural photographer. She won the Hasselblad Architectural Award recently in the Hasselblad Masters competition. So we've got 3 great guests coming up very soon. So talking to guests, that's who we've got coming up. But we will look into that other person because I'm always looking for guests. But normally we choose guests and find them, approach them, and choose. We like to choose a variety, don't we, of different genres.
We've had fashion, architecture, product,
wedding,
wildlife, everything. So,
everything. We've had a whole range of guests, and we're going to keep getting great guests on the show. Sorry, right? Let's go back to the
next one. Robert Surovatka. What is your motivation to create good pictures? What tool do you use to be creative?
I've got to stop you there. Not for your pronunciation, because I'm glad you're pronouncing those
That's
names.
the only reason you got me.
But because you forgot Philip Mason's question. We didn't answer it. We stopped it.
Sorry.
So let's go back to Philip Mason's question. Otherwise, he's going to be going, oh, wait,
we're going to get a comment further down, and then it'll be too late.
Right, so let's Philip Mason's question.
So what do you think is the best DSLR for photography, for studio work?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, I've seen Tim Flack using the what is it? The 5DSR, I believe it is. It's Canon, the high-res Canon 46 megapixel. We've got the Nikon D850, which is very high resolution, like the same sort of 46 megapixel. We've got Sony. So any of those high resolution cameras are good. It's not so much the camera's the problem, it's the glass on the front of them. Because you've got issues with diffraction when you've got these very high resolution sensors, because the photo sites are so small that diffraction can become a problem at f16, f22. It's not so much of a problem on the medium format cameras. You've got the high resolution, you've got the better glass, and that's why I use medium format. But on 35mm, any of those cameras will be good, full frame, high resolution sensor, but it's the glass you put on it. So you might have to start looking into independent brands like Zeiss, some of the other brands, and looking at the test charts and the reports on those glass on what would work. Now, in terms of product photography, you're going to need to using focal lengths in around about 60mm to 100mm for product photography. It's possibly macro lenses, possibly extension tubes, but find the very best glass. That's the key thing.
Okay. Right. Carrying on.
Yes.
Robert, I'm not going to say your surname again, I'm sorry.
Surovatka, I think so, I'm sorry.
What's your motivation to create good pictures? What tool do you use to be creative?
Well, I mean, motivation actually is interesting because we've got a video coming out tomorrow, haven't we, about plagiarism. A little bit about plagiarism.
That sounds a bit bad.
Yeah, well, a little bit about plagiarism, a little bit about inspiration. And in that video, I touch on places where I think I may have got inspiration from before. But I get inspiration from all sorts of places like books, cinema, other photographers. We talk about album covers actually in that video. And then we talk about the difference between, getting inspiration or actually copying someone, and I think that's a threshold that we're going to be very careful with. So the motivation, though, is different, I suppose, to inspiration. The motivation is that I just love it. I'm passionate about creating images. I have been since I was a teenager, even when I was used to do art and drawing. So that's my motivation, is I just love it. The inspiration comes from all sorts of places.
Cool. Bara Kader, how to compete with other photographers' prices? They give a very low price and they are affecting the market here. After you buy very expensive gear, the customer wants cheap prices and they don't really care about quality. What do you have to say about that? There wasn't really a question.
I disagree.
How to compete.
I disagree strongly, because I think the right customers do care about quality. Let's take a look at my Squarespace website for a moment, right? Here's the overview of my work. Now, this sort of work I believe to be high quality, and I have good paying clients that pay me good money to produce images for them that they know will work and will help them sell their products. And that's, as a product and advertising photographer, that's what I do. Now, we obviously do a lot of photography shoots as well for our education tutorials, but a lot of shoots for commercial reasons as well. And some of these clients will pay top dollar for that and not go to some cheap photographer. So I think the issue really is you have to make sure that your work is bang up there. You know, if your work isn't up there at a high enough level, then maybe you don't look as attractive or as competitive as those that are low priced. But if your work is good, then you can demand a higher fee, just like anyone in any industry can. So I think you have to focus on the quality of the work that you produce. That's the number one thing. There are a lot of these talks about, photographers, oh, so-and-so charges this, or they do it for free, and that's fair enough, but I know there's other photographers out there that do stuff for free, but they don't affect my market in any way whatsoever, because they're at a different end of the market. So get yourself in a different position. Upskill yourself, train yourself, get your photography as good as it can be, that end of the market isn't even an issue for you. If you've got clients that want budget and want cheap or want free and are willing to accept low quality for that, you're not going to change that. They're obviously, I don't want those sort of people as clients. So that's the way I would look at it, to be honest.
Okay, Pavilas Stralkus says, hi Karl and Ashley, what do you think about DJI owning Hasselblad? Does it help or does it hurt the company?
Well, he's asking a Hasselblad ambassador that knows the full inside story on all of that, and for confidentiality reasons and etc., we cannot not either, deny or acknowledge.
Are you pleading the fifth?
That DJI fully own Hasselblad. There's obviously rumours about that. We know that DJI have a stake in Hasselblad. I think DJI's involvement in Hasselblad is a good thing. I think DJI are a very profitable company with very good manufacturing. The products they make, and we use the products they make, the DJI Mavic Pro 2, etc. They are amazing products with amazing tech, amazing build quality. And I think if you've got a company like that who can bring that skill set to a company that's rather niche, to be honest, because medium format cameras, whether it's Hasselblad or Mamiya or Fuji, these are niche companies. There aren't a huge amount of medium format cameras sold globally compared to 35mm. Yeah. But they are obviously a much higher price and they're aimed at a certain market, professional market, etc. But Hasselblad have really turned themselves around since the X1D came out. Now they've got the X1D2, and I think things are looking bright for them, and I think the DJI involvement is certainly a benefit, in my opinion. Beyond that, as an ambassador and a consultant for the company, I can't say anymore.
Okay, SDP Photographic Show wants to know, do we actually use these color checker cards that you were holding earlier?
Yes, we do. Sometimes I forget to use them, and then I'm like trying to look at the color on the product, and I'm like, why the hell didn't I put the color checker card in? I'm trying to get a neutral balance, and I'm having to take it off of a white part on the back of the studio wall or something. But generally speaking, no. And you're often the one who's holding these in for the test shot near the start of the shoot. So whenever you change your lighting setup, your modifiers or your light positions, you should reinsert the card for every new set. And the reason is that different modifiers can even have a different tint. So like we looked in our live softbox show the other night, we know that softboxes can be slightly warmer, obviously, than a parabolic silver reflector or a silver umbrella, etc. So it's a good idea to include these because even a neutral scrim can affect it. Other filters that you put on your camera can affect it, etc., etc. So yes, we should be putting them in. I don't generally use them for referencing the actual colors. You can reference these colors and measure the color values, and then there's actually a chart that tells you what those color values should read. But that assumes a certain light level hitting them and certain parameters. Really, we only reference these gray strips at the top. So as long as you had like an 18% neutral grey card, a good grey card, that would at least be something, because that's the one that you can then say, right, is that neutral? Because grey technically isn't a colour, it's just a level of luminosity that's equal in red, green and blue. So if you were taking a measurement of grey in one of the colour channels, so say the colour channels run from 0, which is black, to 255, which is pure white, when you measure the grey card, it should read like 140, 140, 140, or 90, 90, 90, but it should be even in each of those channels. If it reads 94, 90, 90, then it's 4 bits too red. Yeah. Okay, so that's what they're basically for, and yes, we should use them. Now, I just touched on the live show. We did a live softbox show, didn't we?
We did.
And you're doing a wrap-up video.
So those that
weren't able to join us for the show, you will be able to see some highlights of that on YouTube in the next... Tomorrow, maybe the day after. But it was amazing, that show. Really good feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, we got so much information across about the nuances of using softbox. Softboxes are obviously the most popular modifier. And what I did, and you helped with, was we really went in depth looking at how to really use softboxes. Most people actually haven't got a clue how to use softboxes. They don't know where to position them, what angle, what distance, what height, what level, what type of softbox, when to use a grid, not to use a grid, what different shape softbox to use for different things. We covered everything on that. So if you haven't seen that live show, check that out on karltayloreducation.com. And if you don't check it out there, you can see a little bit of the highlights of that on YouTube in the next day or two.
Yep. John Costa says, I'm looking for a good studio camera. Since there are now medium format cameras in the same price range as full frame, if everything's fairly equal as far as pixel counts, what do you recommend?
Well, I think certainly we've seen a huge price drop on the Hasselblad, like the X1D2 is now right down. You could rig up the X1D2 and you can use that in a studio environment. Okay, it's an electronic viewfinder, but you can shoot tethered with it. So you can literally get the same quality of image that you can from the H6 50 megapixel with the X1D2 50 megapixel. You can even buy the adapter that allows you to use the H lenses if you want more choice of lenses, and it will still give you the same image. It's the same sensor. It's the same Sony sensor in that camera. So yes, there are options there for cheaper medium format use. The question then you've got to ask yourself is, why do we need medium format? Well, we don't necessarily need it, but for my work I'd say I do need it, and the reason I need it is because I want a couple of options. One is that super silky smooth tonal range transitions, which is then easier to work with in post. It's a higher quality image, the resolution is a bonus, but 100 megapixel I use, I'd probably be happy with 70, 80 megapixel, but they got a 100 megapixel camera. The next reason is the glass. I'm really impressed with the Hasselblad glass compared to, say, 35mm glass. There isn't any lens in the Hasselblad lineup that you can say, oh, it's not very good. Whereas in a lot of the 35mm camera lineups, you can buy one lens, it might be good, another one might not be so good, and this, that, and the other. Whereas I can just buy any lens in the medium format lineup, and I know they're all going to do the job, so I don't have to worry about it. The other reason that I enjoy using medium format is for the client's purpose for cropping later. So if we've got a 100 megapixel image and they want to crop right into a quarter of the shot, still no problem at all. Now, we're just going to take a quick look at this while we're talking about medium format. So here is some of the work on my Squarespace website. And this is what I'm talking about with medium format. It's that beautiful, silky, smooth transition of tones. Now, you probably won't be able to see that on my website. This is karltaylor.com. This is my Squarespace website. And I just want to put a shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of our live social media. I use the Wells template Squarespace website. Gives me these beautiful high resolution images that resize automatically for mobile or for desktop or whatever you're using, no problem at all. I get all the options of these different menus I can build and adjust. I've got drop down menus. It's really easy to update, it's really easy to navigate, it's really easy to manage, and I can literally shoot an image and add it to the Squarespace site in no time at all. If you want a Squarespace website, you can save 10% and you get a 14-day free trial. Use the offer code Karl at checkout if you buy a Squarespace website. Thank you to our sponsors, Squarespace. Right, let's carry on. Didn't I slide that in really smoothly?
Totally smooth. It's almost like you'd practiced it. You've done it a few times.
Yeah, I've done it a few times, but I haven't practiced it. It just slipped in there.
Okay, Rohit Unil, what focal length do you think is best for portraiture? What do you think about using a 70 to 200mm as a portraiture lens? Yeah, 70 to 200mm, especially the 2.8 version, can work well. We were in Switzerland, four of us, weren't we, working the other day. We were doing a lot of these environmental portrait shots, and I was using the 70 to 200 quite a bit, actually. So 70 to 200 can work well. I wouldn't use it above 100. People start to get a little bit stocky looking. At the 70mm, 80mm end is good, but it's not quite as good as using an 85mm dedicated portrait lens, but it's certainly acceptable. Cool. Pablo Haro is saying, would you consider delivering a workshop in Mexico?
I'd consider it. I'm supposed to be delivering a workshop in China next week, and hopefully that's all going ahead. So yeah, we'll deliver workshops. I mean, the thing with workshops is organising them. That's the big problem. So we run a major workshop here each year. And we sometimes run a couple of workshops, but we've got one major workshop here at the end of March with Tim Flack, where we cover the theoretical stuff of photography as well as lots of practical demonstrations. If you want to see about that workshop, again, you'll find that on our Karl Taylor Education website up there on photography workshops. It's called A Visual Journey. There's a couple of videos about it there. There's the entire itinerary of what's involved on that workshop. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out over there. But the other workshops that I run around the world are usually for one of our partners, you know, like Hasselblad or Broncolor or Manfrotto. They usually organize them and set them up. So I've run quite a few workshops in China recently in the last couple of years, and in Taiwan, and the reason is because I think they're trying to do more business in that market. So it seems obviously they're setting up workshops where they want me to go and things like that. But if there is someone who's willing to organise the workshop, find the venue, rent the venue, organise the catering, pay our fees, we'll be there.
Okay, Andre Relinu has quite a long one here. It's a bit of a scenario. So they are asking a question about large furniture photography, like a table, which is 2.75 meters long by 1.10 meters wide and 0.76 meters high. Since the customer requires to shoot with a 50mm lens on FX, I need to step back quite a bit, which creates the problem, aligning the sensor plane with the table plane. To make things more complicated, I'm shooting in the factory and absolutely nothing is straight, background, floor, etc. So little things I can hang on. A small half-degree misalignment translates into big distortion that is hard to align in post. Any suggestions?
Yes, a couple of suggestions. First of all, I've just found, luckily, I had a folder with some images I was thinking about on these. These are some older images of mine. These are some furniture shots that I did for a custom furniture company. Now on this one, I'm not worried about the alignment. I'm shooting down. I'm just using a grey paper roll background put down onto the floor and then up the wall, shooting that bit of furniture. This one, you can see all the verticals are dead straight, probably corrected them in post. And then on this one, here's a large table. All the verticals are dead straight, but you can see I'm shooting from above. And when I'm shooting from above, then obviously those verticals won't be straight. So it's just simply a case of giving yourself enough angle, wide angle, so that you've got enough space to bend the shot to get the vertical straight again. Now the great thing with furniture is you know it's vertical. You know, if you've got the edge of a bed or the edge of a table, you know it's vertical. So just bring your guides in Photoshop alongside where those legs or the edge of the table, and then bend the table till it matches. It's quite simple. What you then get is the problem that sometimes when you bend it in, the table might look a bit squashed. But then you just stretch the image out that way or that way, whichever way it needs it, to get it back to looking the right sort of proportions. So I don't think there's any real difficulty in shooting a little bit above or a little bit low. You know, obviously if you shoot at the midpoint of the height of the furniture and you shoot with the sensor plane parallel, then you will get it right. The other option is obviously up the game. You need to move to specialist cameras like medium format with tilt and shift adapter, or to a technical camera like a Linhof, and use tilt and shift corrections to actually correct it in camera. So there are a number of options for you. I don't see why there would really be a huge problem on that. And a 50mm lens sounds like a pretty good focal length to do it on, because you know, an 80mm or 100mm, sometimes you can't get back far enough.
Yeah.
One of the key things I would say though is the distance you're shooting at. If you're really close to the furniture, you're going to struggle because you're going to be dealing with distortion and stuff. So you need to move yourself back far enough. And here's the other thing, right? This is what frustrates me with a lot of photographers, right? Is they come to me and they say a question like that, and no disrespect to them for asking the question, but what they've got to think about is be a little bit more bold. They come with the problem that the client is presenting them. Oh, we're shooting it in this small space and I can't get back far enough, but you know, this is the space. What would I say to the client?
Possibly ask them to change that space.
Exactly. No, I wouldn't possibly. I would say, I'm not shooting it in that space. I say, we're going to shoot it here, or you're going to find a bigger room to shoot it in. Because what you're asking for isn't physically possible. If what they're asking for isn't physically possible and will ruin the photos, it's your job as a professional to tell them that, to advise them on that. If they're still saying, oh, no, we've got to shoot it here, this is the only say, I'd walk away from the job because I ain't put my name on a pile of crap. Done. There's your answer.
Yeah, I must say, what I didn't realize coming here was the fact that you don't just take on jobs, you do advise the client as well. You don't just say yes sir, no sir.
Exactly.
There
There's
is
no
that
point.
communication with them.
You know, we're here to provide a service, and I think part of that service is to educate the client and recommend and advise the client. And 99% of the time, they appreciate it. If they take on your professional advice, if you say it can't be done that way, or you're going to compromise the job, you need to shift the goalposts or the parameters of the shoot to get a successful result. Most of the time, they're thankful that you tell them that.
Yep. Okay. Andrei Tovstizenko is saying, what do you think about Cambo Actus for product photography?
Yeah, it could be a good choice. Cambo is another one of those medium, large format camera brands. They make view cameras. They also make some camera stands. I mean, I use the Manfrotto Mono stand. There's obviously this Foba, but Cambo's another one, and I used to have a Cambo for many years. I've not used their view cameras, but I do believe that they are pretty good. So I can't see, again, any problems with it. Again, like I was saying before, you've got to invest your money in the lenses. So you're going to look at getting some really good Rodenstock or Schneider lenses on those technical cameras. That's where the money goes, to be honest. That's what's going to make the difference.
Okay. Frederick Plambeck is saying, how can I get better than Karl?
I'd like to say you can't, but there are many photographers who are better than I am. And there are many photographers who think I'm better than they are, and there are some photographers who I think are better than me that may think I'm better than them, because they just, you look at each person's style of work. I think what's great about photography is it's just like music, you know. If you've got a successful band and another successful band, who's better than one? Well, to that audience that like that band, that one's the better one. To that audience, that one's better. It doesn't really matter. How you get good at anything is practice. Simple as that, okay? There's that old adage, that rule about 10,000 hours to master something. I definitely agree with that, you know. I've been a photographer for probably 30 years and, you know, doing commercial photography, advertising photography for 25 years. And I'd say in the last 10 years, my work has really rapidly improved. So that means half my career, my work wasn't that good. It was okay, but it's actually the last 10 years out of 25, 30 years where I think my work has really improved, and even more so in the last 6 or 7 years with new things, new concepts that I've learned, and more shooting, more practice, that. So shoot more, practice more, learn more. Sign up to karltayloreducation.com. Save yourself 10 years. That will improve you for a start.
Okay, Kishan Chauhan is saying, hi Karl, do you think that as 3D work becomes cheaper, it will take over the architecture, automobile and product photography in future?
It's already taken over the automobile and architecture. IKEA already use 3D models, and they cleverly bought photographers in-house to do the lighting, because they were able to build great 3D models and render them, but they didn't look great because they didn't get their lighting right. So they brought in a team of photographers, and now most of the IKEA catalogues are 3D rendered. Car photography went down the 3D route a long time ago for most part. You just get photographers shoot the background area and then they map the car in. And they actually use like a little wireframe, so they have like a cube, a wireframe cube with like round bits on. And they put that in position where the car would be in the shot, and they shoot that as a reference, so when they map the car in, they know the scale of the cube or the rectangle thing. What we're going to see in future is more CGI sort of impeding on the product photography market. I don't think it's going to be there completely. I mean, if we jump back to again to say some of my commercial product photography work, if you think about shots like this that are organic in many ways, where they have liquid floating around, I was able to do 10 different versions of that shot with that liquid. How much extra time would it take to render 10 different versions with liquid? Yes, you could render a simple CGI shot like that, like something like that could be CGI. But actually, I can shoot something like that quite quickly.
Didn't take long. No.
Didn't take long, you know. So it's not a question of can it be CGI'd. The question in that image, for example, is what is making that image work? Why is that image powerful? It's another set of knowledge there about guiding the eye, composition, lighting, and all the rest of it. You could CGI that shot, but if you didn't know how to compose it and light it in CGI, it's pointless. So the skill set isn't the CGI. The skill set is the knowledge of the art of visual systems, basically. So if I decided to learn CGI, I think I could be a really good CGI artist, because I'd be doing lighting in the CGI world that would be the same as I would light it in my world. And that's what would make the difference, as well as composition. So we mustn't get wrapped up in this whole, is CGI going to replace it? It's only going to replace it if the people operating the kit are as good as the photographers in lighting, because a CGI artist is only as good as he is as a photographer is as good at lighting and composition. So there you go.
Okay, Jeremy Rousseau is saying, hi Karl and Ashley, I want to buy an extended tube, but I don't know which size I need. I work with 35mm Canon camera, and Canon has two sizes available, 12mm and 25mm.
Forget the Canon one, get the Kenko set. We use the Kenko. It sounds like that coffee brand Kenko, but it's not. There's a extension tube set made by Kenko. It comes as a set with the thin one, the medium one, and the fat one, and it's got all the contacts for the focus and everything. Works perfectly. You don't need to worry about the Canon one because there's no glass in it. It's just extension tubes. They're just spacers. So as long as the metal's good, so forget the Canon. Get the set. It comes as a set. Kenko. There you go. Thank me later.
Alex G is saying, any tips to get more jobs as a freelancer, like events and shoots? They've just started with their first contract, but but do you have any more tips?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, we've got a whole section on marketing yourself as a photographer, marketing your business. A lot of it in the events and that sort of industry, I would imagine, is down to networking, speaking to people. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone, send your work to people, talk to people. You know, when you're dealing with social photography, you're in a social world, so you need to socialize and mix and get yourself out there. Obviously, the givens are good website, good work, good rapport with your clients, that sort of stuff. Those are the obvious things. And most of it is really common sense, to be honest. But it's a tough market out there. There's, in many ways, too many photographers and not enough work. So you have to then separate yourself from the other photographers by being better. I don't think price is so much of an issue. People always like, I'm going to be too expensive, or he's cheaper than I am. I don't care about that. Just separate yourself quality. That's the key thing. Then you can afford to charge a little bit more. You know, some of the photographers, right, at the very top of their game, like the ones on the big fashion shoots, the ones with the big campaigns, right, they might work on a shoot and earn £100,000 on one shoot. And they might only do 3 shoots a year. So look at their scenario. They're not worried about, you know, they're only doing 3 shoots a year and they're getting paid a huge, huge amount of money. Right? And that's at the very, very top end, okay? But there's the difference, you know. You know, if you can charge more and work less, surely that's better, because
Sounds
then you can go fishing. I went fishing with my kids the other day. We caught a load of mackerel. And you know, another friend of mine, another photographer, he's actually a photographer at a newspaper, and he said to me, oh, there's these huge bluefin tuna that are bait balling and down at the south coast there, foaming on the surface, feeding on whitebait. And he's saying we should get out there with a camera, not you, me, and jump in the water and film these
that would be
bait balls.
amazing.
But these are massive. I mean, these tuna are bigger than this table, and they're coming at this bait ball like this, he said. And I think he had a video clip of it, and he's saying, right, let's get out there with the dive gear and the camera gear and get in the water with them. So we're going to try and set that. I have no idea how I got to that story. It was something about
Who knows?
fishing. Who knows? Anyway,
Maybe we could do a course on like high-speed photography. I'm sure there's some goals coming down as well.
There could be. Yeah, gulls and gannets diving in the water.
Okay, Renan Prando is saying, hi from Brazil. I'd like to know your opinion about the Broncolor Senso.
I don't know much about it, to be honest. You were at the Broncolor factory the other day with Ben and
very
Tim and myself, and we saw the Senso pack. It's one of their packs. Obviously, the top end pack is the Scoro that does the super fast flash duration, the highest power range, etc., etc. I've not used the Senso. All I can tell you is if it's built by Broncolor, it's built to last. It will be good quality. You'd be far better reading the specs of what the channel distribution is. It asymmetric? Is it symmetrical? What's the power range? How many outlets it's got? What's the flash duration? Read those specs, compare it to whatever you're thinking of, but in terms of build quality and consistency of flash output, you won't go wrong.
Cool. Corinne Wilkinson is saying or asking, what are your thoughts on using LED lights for product photography? Are they just as good as standard flash, or do you think they can be useful?
They can be useful. Again, when we were at Broncolor in Switzerland the other week, and we did use the LED lights. They got new LED lights, the F160 I think it is, and I did a product shoot with them. And I found it a little bit unusual because my usual domain is flash, and I think the versatility of flash is still far better for me, but we did a great product shoot with them. So as long as the lights have got a good CRI, that's a color index, that means they're giving a good full spectrum. The Bron ones have, and they're variable in color temperature from tungsten to daylight. They've got the curved dome, so they also work in other modifiers like paras and things like that as well. The difficulty that I found with it is that you've got to work in a dark space. Because you're dealing with continuous light, you can't have the windows open or you can't have any other light coming in, otherwise it's going to affect what you're shooting. So you have to be prepared to work in a darker space because you're dealing with continuous light. With flash, you don't have to do that so much because the flash burst and the way you set the camera and the shutter speed, you're going to cut out any ambient light and just capture the flash. But with continuous light, you have to let the shutter speed open for longer, which means more surrounding light will get in if you've got surrounding light on. So it's a different way of working, but it's still possible. The reason people like to go with continuous light is because they're scared of flash. And the fact of the matter is that actually when you understand flash and how to use it, it's very, very easy. In many ways, I find it easier, much easier than continuous light. If you want to learn how to use flash, studio flashlight really well, head over to Karl Taylor Education and check out our studio lighting courses.
Okay, Thomas James is asking a question which you kind of touched on earlier, but he wants to know, where do you find your inspiration for styling and composing product images, your props and lighting?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got sets of rules that I follow in terms of compositionally and how I'm going to guide the eye into a picture. That's all based on visual science stuff that myself and Tim Flack have studied, and we is the focus of our workshop. So I use that information when I'm configuring a shot. I'm always considering how I want the eye to go through a picture, how I'm going to compose the picture, where the eye is going to go around the picture, come back again, and not let them out of the photo. The whole purpose of a photo, especially product and advertising photography, is to keep them in the photo. You don't want them to turn the page. So if you get those elements wrong, then they lose interest. And then there's other factors to do with color combinations, to do with contrast combinations, to do with which side the contrast is on, which way the product is pointing. There's a lot of complexities in it, way, way more than I can, indicate or give to you now. It actually takes us about 4 days for Tim and I to explain these concepts on the workshop that we're running in March.
And even then you need to practice and do it to actually understand it, really.
Yeah.
Mel Wong is saying, do you think Instagram is helping with photography?
I'm not that bothered, to be honest. We use Instagram when we put a new, there's our Instagram, it's just come up on screen. I think we posted a new photo yesterday. I've been working on, actually this shot here, I really like. I forgot about this photo, right? I shot this live at a show, Shoot London. And I kind of parked that photo for a while because I didn't have time to work on it. It wasn't for commercial reasons. I didn't really have a need for it. But then I looked at it again when I was going through some other stuff and I thought, I like that. So I just decided to do a bit of thing. So that one will be going up on our Instagram account soon. It's a good way of communicating with your followers, potentially with your customers. Some photographers are making money from Instagram in the sense that they've got like 1 million followers and they're called influencers. I can't stand that, right? Anyway, these influencers get paid by a company for posting a picture of a certain product and all that else. I'm not sure how valuable it is. I think a lot of these companies are getting duped by this whole social media stuff. I don't really believe that when you post a picture of something, everyone rushes out to buy it. I think it's a load of nonsense. And I think a lot of companies are going to wake up to that at some point. Instagram, if you like, as an instant website is kind of cool because it's so quick and so easy to go and look through someone's work. But I still think the power of a proper website is important, bigger images, better resolution and all the rest of it.
Looks more professional than sending someone to Instagram.
Yeah. I wouldn't focus on social media as a way of generating revenue. A few people have managed to do it. I think it's going to nosedive at some point.
Okay. Daniel Majewski is saying, hello Karl, I have a DJI Pro 2 and I would like to hear your opinion about the quality of the images and if you have any advice making long exposures with it. They've tried but had no luck.
We haven't tried long exposures on it yet. No. We put 2 videos up on YouTube because Ben was teaching me how to fly it. Very easy to learn to fly. And then we did a second video on the tracking features, quick shot and the boomerang and all that. And that's as far as I've got with it. I've only used it for video because I'm only interested in using it for video. I'm not really bothered about stills. Apparently it does take good stills, but I'm really impressed with the video. They've used the Hasselblad natural color system in it, and it's got a sort of warmer filmic look to it, which I really like. So I'm afraid I can only say I like it from a video point of view. Haven't tested the photo capabilities of it yet.
Okay, Lars Dorks is saying, hi Karl. There are big differences between the image quality of digital sensors and professional analog films. I think they're saying, are there big differences between the image quality of digital sensors and professional analog?
Yeah, well, we used to shoot large format film in the old days, 5x4, and I think now when you drum scan a 5x4 inch transparency, the highest sort of res drum scans from that still don't look much better than my 100 megapixel medium format camera. So I think they are, what's the word, parity? Is it parity?
Equal? Word? Parallel?
Yeah, I'm sure it's parity is the word.
Maybe.
I'm going to look it up while you get the next question.
Okay, Randy12 Gerard is saying, Kyle,
Kyle?
Do you have any plans on doing a workshop in the USA? So we can't answer for Kyle, but we can answer for Karl.
We answered that, yeah, parity is a word, I was right. Right, we answered that earlier about workshops, I'm afraid. You'll have to rewind. We're running out of time here and we've got a bang load of questions to get through, so let's get on with that one.
Okay, Amine Kadari is saying, do you have any idea if the iPhone images on Apple's website are 3D renders or real? They want to take photos like that, but it's very hard.
The ones of the pictures of the phones and the pictures of the kit are 3D renders, okay? The pictures of the Beats headphones and stuff are 3D renders. Now, let's just jump back to my website here. Ben's just done a runner, and now Georgie's going to have to switch to my screen, which he's just done there because Georgie's taken over on the live desk. Like, for example, this is a photograph, and Apple use 3D renders. I still prefer the photograph because my photograph looks more realistic and, in my opinion, better than the 3D renders. And now she's going to come back to me, and she's just, yeah, she is, and she's learning on the job, and yeah. So I think yes, the stuff on Apple's website, but if you compare it to say that, then and she's going to go back to that now really quickly. If you compare it to that, it's much more difficult than you thought, isn't it? If you compare it to that, that looks sort of CGI, but it's not, and it looks more realistic than CGI. So I prefer that. Okay, next one.
Oh, I got so caught up in that I've lost my place now. Marvin Lovenfeld is asking, what are your thoughts about the megapixel race among camera manufacturers?
I don't like it. I think we should have called it a day a while ago. Sony are obviously, they're making the sensors. They're the ones driving it. So, part of the megapixel race is all to do with marketing and who's got the most. Personally, in a medium format camera, I think we should have cut it at 80 megapixels, because then we would have been dealing with get the largest sensor, the one that's the same size as the 100 in physical space size, put 80 megapixels in there, then the photo sites would be a little bit bigger, then you would have less problems with diffraction, and my opinion is the image quality would be higher. So we're now left with a situation where they want to keep upping the amount of megapixels. We've got the Hasselblad at 100, we've got phase gone to 150, but 150, what's the point? Again, diffraction issues. Diffraction's going to happen way earlier on the depth of field scale. It's going to start happening at f11, f8, which means you've got unusable image, quality there because you can't stop down. So, we've got to draw the line somewhere with this marketing nonsense and say, can the physics of diffraction be overcome that makes sense to keep increasing the megapixels? Then we've also got the keeping the images. When I'm working on these files now, one file from my camera is 600 megabytes. So you imagine once I've got a 2 or 3 layered focus stack or something, I'm dealing with gigabytes.
Massive, yeah.
Then you need more powerful computers, you need more storage space. So again, I'll go back to it, when I used to use the 50 megapixel camera, I never had a problem. No client came back to me and said, that train station billboard we did on your camera didn't look sharp. That never happened, even from a 50 megapixel. So I think, yeah, the megapixel race has got silly, and we should focus back on quality and glass.
Okie dokie. Next question is from Mel.
Hold on, can I ask a question? What time did we start? Because have we been about an hour now?
I think we've been about an hour. I think
we're going to do 5-10 more minutes max, okay?
Yeah.
Because we're running over time here.
Which type of photography do you think is the best to improve your skills? Fashion, street, wedding?
Fashion would be the more difficult one, in my opinion, because there are more complexities to fashion photography. You've got wardrobe, styling, hair, makeup, lighting, props, sets, location, background, working with a team. Huge amount of pressure and stress when you're doing a fashion shoot, and therefore more stress, more pressure, more learning. So fashion.
But if you're never doing fashion, would you go and practice fashion?
No. No.
It's a complicated name again, I'm afraid. Dinyanesh Sawant is saying, now that Nikon has come out with a new mount with their mirrorless line of cameras, does it make sense to purchase any of their higher priced F-mount lenses like the 24-17, 14-24 or 105 f1.4?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to purchase one of their new mirrorless cameras with the new mount, obviously not, unless there's an adapter for it. But it depends which route you're going to go. Do you want their new mirrorless camera? If you want their new mirrorless camera, then there's your answer. If you don't want their new mirrorless camera and you want to work with like a Nikon D850, there's also your answer. So the answer is really in which system you're going to work with. I've got Canon system, I've also got Hasselblad system. I can only put my Hasselblad lenses on my Hasselblad camera, and that's it. So that's the system I'm working with.
Okay, Bassi Idoho is saying, hello Karl, when are your new food photography videos going live?
You can answer that.
We've been releasing a few. We released some on Friday, I think it was.
Right, okay. And there's more to come.
Yeah, so those were the food ones for this month. Next month we've got more. The month after we've got more. So just keep an eye out on the channel, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay, Yash Lefehi is saying, about your photography course, if I choose a 1-month package and pay next month, it takes it automatically from our account?
It takes it when you sign up. So
Yeah.
if you sign up, it takes £14 or $19, and then you have access for a month. You can cancel immediately, and you'll still have your access for a month. If you don't cancel, it will charge
get
you
charged.
at the next month, and you'll have another month. So it's a recurring payment system. It's a membership platform, just like Netflix. And we do 2 sets of live shows per month, sometimes a guest, sometimes a shoot. You can see all the previous live shows that we've ever done that are in the archive on replay. Even if you're just in for a month, you can watch as much as you want. You'll never get through the content in a month because there's
I think we've hit like
hundreds, thousands
yeah.
of hours of stuff and stuff. So you'll probably at least want a few months out of it, but we try to make it good value. It's not expensive, and there's a huge wealth of knowledge there.
Yeah, and support as
And
well.
you can cancel any time.
Yeah. Nick Barella is saying, is there ever a chance of having people attend the live shows at your London studio? Could charge tickets or do a raffle for people to attend?
We have considered this about people being here.
We're not in London,
No,
though.
we're not in London, although we could do something in London. But I suppose no, we've thought about it, and we may do something like that in the future, but it has come into our mind, so watch this space.
Okay, Flora and Fauna channel. Hello, Karl. How do you know which skills are more important in commercial photography? Taking high quality pictures or being able to sell photos of dubious levels?
Dubious levels, at dubious levels. For me, the quality of the work is always the primary focus, you know. I don't believe anything in life will last if it's rubbish, you know, unless it's free, you know. But even then, people get
People will
fed
get
up,
over it.
Get over
Yeah.
it, you know. Quality is the thing that is the last man standing, in my opinion. But the problem with it is that you can also dedicate so much time to perfection and quality, but then not spend any time on marketing, that someone who's slightly not as good as you, but very good at marketing and networking will get all the work. But they won't get it all if their work isn't quite good enough. So they've got to be at least to a certain standard. So you've got to get the balance right, but I think you've got to certainly get your quality to a level that's saleable and then go from there.
Balance.
Balance, yeah.
Tony Hahn is saying, would you ever do wedding photography?
No, no, not that there's anything. Good friend of mine, David Stanbury, top wedding photographer, guest on the show, great wedding photographer, but he's a great people person, you know. He's got the gift. I mean, I can talk, but he can talk. That guy can talk.
I didn't meet him, he was just before I arrived.
Hind legs off a donkey, but he's got those people skills. And I don't have those people skills in the same way. I don't mind talking to a camera, and I don't mind working with a small crew, but dealing with all those guests and all those things, I'd lose my patience. I haven't got the temperament for it. I'm much better with objects that don't move and don't answer me back.
Okay, Ario Bobby is saying, hello Karl, as a beginner, which brand of camera would you recommend for me? And again, do you have discount for your online training?
We have got some discounts on the camera brands, because we've done a partnership actually with Robert White Photographic in the UK. They sell most of the major brands, so we can get you like 5%, 10% on some products. And members on our website, on the Karl Taylor Education platform, are entitled to discounts with some of our brand partners, and many of them actually sign up because they, you know, because the discounts are more valuable than the membership costs. So there is that. So if you check out on our website, you can see which brand partners you can get discounts on. In terms of which camera, I mean, to me, they're all the same. Sony, Nikon, Canon, a full frame sensor, a couple of good lenses, and away you go. As long as you can use it in manual mode, I'd be happy.
I think for any members who are watching as well, we've added a few partner discounts. So if you haven't been on the partner discount page recently, it might be worth checking it out.
Good point.
Karim Ben Hajali is saying, hi Ashley and Karl, I guess it can't be all a straight road to get where you are, but how do you get through tough or rough times as a photographer?
Well, you know what? That's an interesting question, and I'll be blatantly honest with you. So we had the economic crash back in 2008, and which is obviously 11 years ago now. You were probably still at school.
What, 2008? Yeah, I was.
So I wasn't. I was working. I was a busy commercial photographer in 2000s, whatever. And when the economic crash happened in 2008, a lot of advertising agencies cut their budgets and slashed their budgets, and work dropped out of the market for a while. But myself and some colleagues, we've been discussing this idea about creating education because I'd run a couple of popular presentations and workshops. And it was only because of the economic crash that we then had time to focus on that and start to decide to do something with that education side of the business. And here we are 10 and a bit years later, and we have a successful education business as well as commercial photography. And then the commercial photography's picked up a bit, it's kind of plateaued out. So I guess you have to kind of think about, well, what else can I do? Some photographers go out and shoot more stock images. Other photographers will find other ways of trying to make money from their work. Some photographers I know, even top end ones, they ended up doing different jobs as well as their photography. And other photographers, unfortunately, some of the very top end ones that I know went bust and then ended up not working at all for a while. So, you know, it's tough, but it's no different to any other industry, I'm afraid. At the end of the day, you're in business, you have to think of ways of making your business work.
Okay, Mohammed Abdullah is saying, hi Karl, should I upgrade from a crop sensor to full frame? Guys are talking about full frame. Guys are saying that full frame will kill crop sensors in the future. But looking at images on the web, on Instagram, the albums, it doesn't seem to stop the difference.
No, well, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with crop sensors. Personally, I prefer full frame sensors just because I'm familiar with the full frame 35mm film format. So moving from that 35mm film to full frame is the same format. So therefore, the focal length of the lens is the same. You do get slightly better rendition of depth of field, but that's due to magnification, and you can kind of get around that depending on the lens you're choosing to use. It's just my familiarity with full frame is why I prefer to use it. There are arguments that, you know, using a mirrorless crop sensor camera, you can be more discreet. For street photography, it could be better. So there are it's a better tool for certain jobs, but I think by and large, I'd still prefer a full frame sensor. There are also benefits of the larger the sensor, the physics of that, the larger area, the spread of light on the larger area. It can improve tonal range, can improve the ability for higher ISOs, stuff like that. So.
Okay.
Should we take, we're running out of time, we're going to take three, how many more questions?
We've got a lot more, we're not going to get.
Okay, we're not going to get through them, I'm afraid, everyone. We're going to take 3 more questions and then we're going to call it a day.
Okay, so let me try get one that hasn't been asked really.
While you're doing that, just to let you guys know, just jump back to my screen please, Georgie. We have a workshop coming up next Thursday on portrait photography. It's a members critique. So we'll be looking at our members' work, and where is it? I can't remember where it is. Somewhere in here on our live show section, we'll be doing a portrait critique, and that's next Thursday, critiquing our members' work. So tune in for that one if you'd like to see what my opinion on other photographers' work is. And not only do I critique it, but I try to point out the positives, the negatives, how it could be improved, whether it's great, whether it's not, blah, blah, blah. So those shows normally go down really well.
Okay, I'm going to try pick out a few good ones here.
Okay.
This
in your own
quiz.
time.
There's so many I'm trying to sort through, and I see one and I'm like, oh, that one. Okay.
Christmas soon.
Ashutosh Jar is saying, any tips on bottled pickle photography? The bottles are made of cheap plastics that don't really look good.
I can't, I mean, I'd need to do, you know, you can't answer that. There's so many factors and facets involved with lighting, scrims, gradients, glass. You'll have to sign up to Karl Taylor Education and watch the courses on product photography and glass and packaging and that sort of stuff. We've got tons of that stuff.
Okay, Mate Bolok is saying, I would like to get your opinion on portfolio building. Do you think it is good practice to make product shots just for yourself and not for a client, and building a portfolio that way to get your first client?
Absolutely. That's what I used to do in the old days. Was I used to shoot. I shot a campaign for, was it Grant's Whiskies, and I got that job off the back of getting their products, bringing them in the studio, shooting them, doing loads of test shots, and then creating some really nice images, and then sending them to them and saying, "Hey guys, what do you think of these?" So so shoot stuff that you like, that you think you can make look good. Obviously look at your competitors' work and shoot speculatively. Don't give it to them for free, but just shoot speculatively and say, look, here you are, this is what I'm capable of doing with your stuff. Do you like it? Now you may have to go through their ad agency, through their marketing department. The getting your foot in the door may involve finding out who you've got to get the pictures to, and that's a big part of it. Otherwise, they may never get there. But no, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
I think if nothing else, again, even if you don't use the image on your portfolio, it's good practice too.
Absolutely.
Someone here, I've just lost it, Randy12 Gerard is asking again, can you offer any tips on purchasing a second-hand Hasselblad camera, the pros and cons and what to look out for?
Well, shutter count isn't an issue because the shutter is in the lens. So there is a cloth shutter in the back of it, but that's not there for the actual shutter of the picture taking. The leaf shutter system's in the lens on Hasselblad lenses. So you need to have a good look at the lenses, check the shutter count on the lenses, and check for your obvious dents, marks, scratches, and then the body. Normally if they're mistreated, they look bad. Don't forget that even if you buy one and there's an issue with it, you can send it back to Hasselblad for service and repairs, etc. Most of the retailers that sell secondhand, like the Pro Centre in London, Robert White or other places, they'll usually give you, a couple of months guarantee on it secondhand anyway. So I think it's just got to apply a bit of common sense, really. Right, one more question, and then we've got to call it a day.
Nick Heinemann is saying, what are your thoughts on digital manipulation that crosses over with painting similarities?
I don't like it. I mean, in terms of digital manipulation, we all do post-production on our work. Most of my post-production, as you know, is burn and dodge. It's making areas lighter, darker, shading, toning, just like we used to do in the darkroom. And most of that is done for the reason to try and change the contrast in an image and where you want the eye to go and things like that. Then there may be a little bit of coloration work, but generally not much of that stuff. Then you've got other post-production work like Eric Johansson, who's going to be a guest on the show, who does these incredible fantasy composites, which is taking pieces of one image, shooting an image, another image, and having an idea in mind of how you're going to composite it all together and then blending it to make it look real. That's another skill set in Photoshop that I don't have at all, although Victor Fayesh did a course for us on compositing with the fireman shot, which is on Karl Taylor Education. But then you've got this other part of Photoshop where you can apply these filters that make it look like a painting, or look like, I can't stand that. I don't see the point. It's either a photograph or it's photorealistic or it's not. Done. End of story. Yeah. Right, that is it, I'm afraid, because Ashley wants to go and have her dinner. She said her tummy was rumbling. Yeah, luckily. I don't know if you heard it on the microphone.
No, it behaved.
Mine was okay. So thanks for tuning in. We'll be back at some point live on social media. We're obviously live on karltayloreducation.com regularly. We've got another great show coming up on Thursday. You just missed an amazing show on softboxes, which was really informative. But Ashley's going to put up a highlights of that video on YouTube in the next day or two. And we've got this really funny video coming out tomorrow about plagiarism. That's where people steal your photography and what you can do about it. So check out that on our social media channels tomorrow. I'm Karl Taylor. She's
Ashley.
And we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thanks for watching.
Bye.